Now let's speak about maybe a bit more, I don't know if more exciting, but very, very exciting about China. You came back from China Joy.
Yes.
You and I spoke. You sent me 9 books to read about China and tell me read them immediately. It's the future will look like that.
Yes.
I see, I think, every few months a new game that is scaling like insanely. King Shot, Whiteout, Capybara Go. We just see them from Hobby, from Century, from Hungry Games. You just see more and more Chinese studios that are just nailing new games in the West. How they do it?
Sure. Let me kind of take a detour, and if you don't, we can cut it later on if you want. But I'm absolutely fascinated by China for a few different reasons. One is this is in some ways the biggest humanitarian success story in the world. Is China perfect? No. But imagine what they did lifting 600, 700 million people out of poverty, right? Like you have to give credit to how they collectively did it. Whether it's capitalism under a different guise, whether it's whatever, I'm not discussing the political ideology. The second thing is, I was reading this thing when Angela Merkel went to China, they told her, of the 20 centuries, China was a leading force in the world for 18 of those centuries. And Merkel didn't believe it and then looked back, and it's actually true. So I'm absolutely fascinated about China. And what I saw on the ground, like before I went there in 2015 for China Joy again, was actually very, very different than what it is today. But before I went, I read all these things about China living in the future, and it is absolutely true. Like they're definitely living in the future. And in a way, it's really inspiring to see because, you talk about electric cars, you talk about AI and the amount of money and resources they're putting behind AI. And all of that is, regardless of your political take on China, that should be a very interesting place to see and to visit, right? You go into a grocery store, you can pay with your palm. You can, you have this phone number that we talked about, 12345, which is a non-emergency hotline for anything that China. You call that, and they have like a KPI to answer it in 15 seconds.
That's insane.
And you say, I don't have ultra fast 5G, and they build a new base station in 2 weeks near your house, etc. So it's a very different country, and you see the triple folding Huawei phones and everything. And no country is perfect. Like we started a conversation how much I love the U.S. Is the U.S. perfect? No, right? For this specific genre, I think, first of all, they're very, very smart about, going after a market and doing it with enough resources and doing it with enough savviness that I have seen. Second is everybody's working a lot. I mean, there's really, I get a lot of flack for this, but there's really no shortcut to success. It's you are what you put in, right? So I think they work a lot, and they have this hunger to want to win, and we can sit about why that is, but that's just a fact. You see it on the ground. People work from like 9 till 8, 5 days, 6 days a week, and that's just the thing. So you go there, everybody's in the office all the time. And they're just working really, really hard. So, and they're smart. And I think the biggest thing that I realize is when they spot an opportunity, they're just relentless. They go after it very, very big. So to me, that was, as a person, as a techno optimist, it was a fantastic thing to see. And on a human level, also fascinating. Like a lot of people say there's no privacy in China. I don't know if that's true or not. Maybe it's true. But because of all the cameras and all of those things, there's also no crime. It's like the thing about, like, what we talk about, like Dubai and, and it's not an easy country for a Westerner to understand. So we shouldn't try to, place judgment on on China as a country based from our Western lenses, just like we wouldn't want them to place judgment on us
Exactly.
through their Chinese lenses, right? So it's just a different culture. But I mean, it's like I pulled up this data for my LPs the other day, and I was looking at, one of the narratives we hear is how hard it is to break into the top, whatever, 25, 30. And you look at it, and actually, of the games that have done so, right, majority of them are Chinese,
It's insane.
right? And you have these like Forex games that use different like UA tactics and everything that are breaking. And one of them is making like $140 million a month within the span of like a year. That we have to be in awe of that, regardless of what your position is on China. So I came back and I was absolutely fascinated. And then my favorite story, which I told you, which I'll share as well. I bought a bunch of stuff, and when I'm leaving the hotel, I realized I'm not like fitting into the carry-on luggage that I brought. So I said, oh, like, what am I going to do? I went down to the concierge and said, do you have an extra bag I can get? And they said, no, we don't have an extra bag, but we can just order you from Taobao. I was like, it's not going to work because I'm being picked up in 2 hours. They're like, no, it'll work. So they're like, they opened their app and then like kind of went through.
App for everything. This is how
App
I
for
call
everything.
it.
And then I chose one and it arrived in less than an hour.
It's insane.
So, like the people's lives and everybody that I talk to, right, they're very happy living there. Quite happy. Everybody's working hard, so it doesn't really bother you. That's like the norm. And
Yeah.
so,
How do you think the Western studio can compete with that today, especially?
look, it's very hard.
It is
Genuinely.
very hard.
Like, I think there is a special type of know-how that's still super valuable that exists in certain ecosystems, right? This is why we don't see a hybrid casual or casual yet coming from China, right? Maybe.
See some merge is pretty strong with Halber and
Yeah,
stuff like
exactly.
That. But
so,
it's not that famous like
Microfun. I know
yeah.
is like one of my very good friends, the founder of Microfun. I know, the journey they got through to get there. There's really, very few secrets. And the guy from Dream Games, they're working just as hard as the Chinese guys. So overall, I think you have to assume that to level the playing field, you have to work and I'm not just saying this as like a hustle porn, okay? I really don't want to advocate for that. But the reality is this is not a field where, like, let's take AI, for instance, right? AI came from the West, right? Now China is in a place where they're investing a lot of resources, and the amount of new breakthroughs they're doing is actually phenomenal. I'm not talking about just DeepSeek. I'm talking about fundamental breakthroughs they're doing in AI is phenomenal. The criticism that people make on China is, US is always great to go from 0 to 1, and China will replicate it in a very fast way. I think that misses the point entirely, because there's nothing inherently uninnovative about Chinese culture, right? If you look back in the long arc of history, printing press, gunpowder, ink, these are all Chinese inventions. It's just maybe lately they're better at replicating stuff than originating stuff, but I believe that will change. I think they will be very good at replicating. That's the biggest, I guess, unknown is how do they go from 0 to 1? And the common criticism is, well, they don't have this culture of risk taking and so on. That's not what I saw. I can tell you, there's no culture that lacks anything in risk taking. So how do you compete as a Western studio? I think you just have to realize that the luxury of working 32, 35 hours a week is over. If you want to succeed, you have to work hard. That's just a, common saying, but it's true. But also, there are certain unfair advantages that certain ecosystems have. Like probably for Israel, you guys have in gaming an incredible sophistication with monetization, with marketing and so on. In Turkey, there's this product know-how about casual puzzle and level design and etc. So it's just trying to recognize what those are and just doubling down.
Exactly.